Hello. How we doing? Mwakaleni, how is everybody doing? We are back with another video. Welcome to my very special YouTube channel, YouTube rants channel, whatever the fuck I'm deciding to call it. I'm still thinking of a name. As you all know, this is quite the interesting channel with quite the interesting topics, and we are here to break down yet another interesting one to shake up the masses, because that's what I love to do. So yeah, let's jump straight into it. Okay, so it is very important. Fuck me. There we go. Hello. I don't know, maybe this will be a blooper. So it's very important that we discuss certain societal issues that we go through as individuals, as a race, as a people. And today we are discussing colorism in relation to societal classes, prejudice, and racism in general. We have a different form of racism that we experience in countries like Zambia and Africa in general, and the most emphasis on it being the social construct of colorism, which is as a result of certain social classes that came about due to many reasons. So let's get into it. So efforts in developing an understanding between race and class have a history in sociology. In the 1930s and in the 1940s, the main conceptualization was the concept of the caste and class. You see, studies conducted in the southern region of the United States, and also the parallel being the Indian caste system, developed a correlation between the two, in that both of them had a certain class element to them. So a sort of class differentiation was then observed within the two racial castes. A line was drawn between the two classes and severely disadvantaging the African Americans of the lower class. This theory, however descriptively illuminating it is, has been challenged by many scholars as being superficially similar to the caste systems in other countries such as India, because the United States race relations was based mostly on a superficial level in relation to the caste system. It more so became an issue of the skin color. Rather, in the United States, they spearheaded the color of your skin as opposed to your social standing, while at the same time simultaneously masking social classes while they were at it. Now, the relationship between class and race is something that has been hotly debated upon for millennia. You see, many scholars have argued that class has superseded race by many factors. You see, in continuing to disadvantage people, class is what continues to disadvantage black people specifically. Another factor that also continues to disadvantage black people was the exodus of the Industrial Revolution. You see, race is more so of a primary category of classes. Because you move from the top to the bottom, you realize that the subdivisions of these classes do include race, they include your ethnicity, and everything to do with what you use to identify yourself. The Marxist scholars do argue that race and class are not separate dimensions of inequality, but race and class are both part of the same system that need to be studied together. Through the analysis of this system, you will then create a whole new, different, broader understanding of where this whole thing is coming from. So the central question then becomes, how has capitalism, a system based on class exploitation, influenced and shaped this phenomena of race and racism? So I could go on and on to bore you about these systems in society, about capitalism, class, and by extension racism, but all you need to know is that capitalism takes advantage of class, which in turn subdivides and categorizes people into further subdivisions from top to bottom. Wherever at the pyramid, at whichever point in the pyramid where you stand is your social standing. Okay, so the people at the bottom can never go up, and the people at the top are incentivized by the people at the bottom to never go down. So it doesn't necessarily matter the race that you are, the color of your skin. It mostly depends the social class that you belong to. And that is heavily influenced by how much resources are made available at your disposal. And surprise, surprise, who has the most resources in society? White people. So far, we've spoken about white capitalism and their exploitation of classes in order to stay at the top. However, we have not spoken of colonized labor. Here in Africa, we experience something different from what they experienced in the United States, which is slavery, which basically built America. But what about colonization here in Africa? What about it? The colonial world was a little bit more complex than this. They had their own upper and middle classes, of course, but sometimes immigrants or outside people were brought in to serve as the upper class and the middle class in order to maintain a certain sense of social hierarchy within the colonial rule. Since we've established that in colonial rule there was also a hierarchy between the upper class, the middle class, and the lower class, the upper class owning most of the resources, the middle class being the middle strata or the middlemen minorities. Take note of this word because it's very important. And of course, the lower class. Now, these middlemen minorities played a huge role because, for one, they were mostly of the mixed race. And also, they played a more so dualistic role, rather a middleman, basically, between the upper class and the lower class. With that being the case, them being strangers to those that were colonized, they did not share their values, they did not share their determination or even their aspirations. So it was easy for them to do their job, report back to the upper class, and at the same time take their cut and leave. Because to them, it was simply each man for himself. So on the one hand, they got to help the upper class imperialists exploit these resources more effectively, whilst at the same time being able to retain a cut from all of this business. And these people were many. They were labor contractors, they were policemen, they were even small business owners that had ethnic ties to these groups. So it was easy for them to act as a middleman between the upper class and the lower class, in that it was, you saw a familiar face. My goodness. Whew. A familiar face. You saw a familiar face that you trusted. Well, familiar enough that it was not the white man directly taking your shit, but hey, come on. They were still taking your shit. Why go on and on about slavery and colonization and everything to do with what happened to black people? Because, I mean, when you're black, you're never lonely. There's always some white person out there, some, I don't know, European out there just minding your business. There we go. We good. We good. Sorry, it's a one-man show here. So because of this, a great importance and admiration was given to these middlemen. They were black people living amongst us. Most of them were mixed. But of course, their pigmentation gave them the upper hand. We have the terms like house nigger and field nigger. And we have things like light-skinned and darkies and everything used to describe different shades of black people. And we fast forward to today and we are experiencing the same damn thing, only in a much more complex web of social interactions. Growing up a very brown looking kid, I had experienced a form of colorism in one form or another, whether it was being compared to my siblings that were lighter or darker than me, or my friends that were lighter and darker than me. So it is something that we need to discuss with the utmost clarity, with the utmost research and sensitivity, of course, because it is a sore topic for most people, because it has been the basis by which people have been judged, have been given certain jobs, have not been awarded certain jobs and positions because of just how pigmented their skin is. And to me, it's funny because it's this, it is the equivalent of cats fighting each other because one is ginger and the other one is black. You're all cats. Shut the fuck up. So in certain interpersonal relationships such as dating and friendships in schools, we had these things called play moms in high school, where people would play house in a sense, and you saw that there was a certain preference. Most of these play moms liked to my grade 8s or 8th graders or freshmen or whatever you want to call them in your country, that were brown, lighter, much more less dark or pigmented, I guess. And to some extent, it was then drilled into you because you understand that the preference for these people became that thing. Social media, TV, advertisements, they were all championing a certain color and pigmentation of skin that was preferred. But whoever told you this was the norm? It dates back to how you view yourselves on the social uh, ladder or pyramid. Because at the end of the day, in as much as we still have white people at the top of the pyramid, certain races in the middle, and certain races at the bottom, class still remains something that determines how far up you're gonna reach. But if you're disadvantaged both in class and in pigmentation, then shocks to you, right? I am tired of people basing how attractive you are or how dateable you are or how doable you are by just how pigmented your skin is. We have people having preferences of light-skinned women purely because they want breeders. Breeders, guys. You call people of a lighter pigmentation breeders just because you feel they will give you browner or lighter kids. It is that vain. It's that vain. Honestly, that's the only way you can use to describe it. It is vanity at the utmost degree. And it bores me, really. There's better criterias to understand people, like the intellect, their credibility, how qualified they are in their craft, in their field. So many things come before this color of your skin, but yet we have made this the basis of everything that we do in our lives. How we choose our partners, which people we associate ourselves with, which people we want to bear our kids, which people should own certain resources. And it's quite interesting, to say the least. For the longest time, we have been made to believe that black people that look like Mariah Carey are more attractive than black people that look like Lupita Nyong'o. You do realize they come from the same place, right? I mean, if you date it back further and further and further. But it took a white man, just like it took a white man still, to tell you how differently pigmented you are determines where you stand on the social hierarchy or the class hierarchy, to also name Lupita Nyong'o the most beautiful woman of that decade or that century. Interesting. So it took a white man to point that out to you, just like it took a white man to point out to you just how much different you are. There's people in Africa that are dark shades of almost blue-black, and we have people that are lighter shades, as white as Asians. But we don't see that difference. Rather, we never saw that difference until it was pointed out to us by the same people that came to divide us on the basis of our resources. It is appalling that we are still being governed by the same systems. Despite calling ourselves free, we are still being governed by the same systems and even using them against ourselves to divide us even further. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a first-time YouTuber vlogging from my very, very interesting Android phone and giving their opinions based off of the observations in society and within myself and my own life. I urge you to speak up about certain issues, or rather just introspect within yourself why you make certain decisions. Are you influenced by certain things that were done to you in the past, or are you really doing these things because this is what you really feel in your heart? I'm not here to attack people that have a certain preference for certain people of certain skins and pigmentation, because what are we if not a huge bowl, a huge salad bowl? Okay, you can bite into an apple or a banana or a pear, and sometimes even a few raisins here and there. We don't judge, okay? So let us really reflect upon the systems that have been set up in our societies and why we follow them to the T. Some of these things are just followed because it's tradition. But if we all know, tradition comes from just a long history of practicing something so often that it becomes the norm, it becomes the custom. And I urge you then to question even traditions, even certain norms, and even preferences that you have. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that is permanent is change. So nothing is set in stone. You could always change your opinion. You could always change your thoughts on certain things.
So what kind of girls are you into? No dark skins.
I don't really fuck with black girls.
Not too dark.
You know them black girls have Sharkeishas.
Fam, he got chlamydia. Black things I can't really.
So with that being said, I am the loneliest sweet potato, telling you to introspect, look within yourself, and I will see you in the next one. Peace and love.